welcome back to K and K Real Talk. We are on episode 22, and today we're going to be talking about healing foods. So if you haven't met me before, if this is your very first episode, my name is Kenny King. I'm a holistic health and wellness coach and transformation life coach. I focus on helping women with endometriosis suppress, reverse, reduce their symptoms holistically. And here with the founder of Endometriosis and Me, Kristen McCroby. Hi, Kristen.
Hi, guys. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. It's been a while since we've been together. I'm so happy to be here with you again. It's been like weeks with all of the different interviews and everything.
It has. It feels like it's been a long time.
Yeah. But we love bringing you other experts, and we love bringing you content. We love bringing, we want to introduce you to other people doing fantastic work in the community and all things related to endometriosis, but also just to women's health and a better quality of life all around. So we're so happy that you're here with us, and we're just going to dive right in. So we've talked a lot in past episodes about self-care and about ways that you can use nutrition and movement and lifestyle changes to really support quality of life and potentially reduce symptoms and ease the endo symptoms, the pain and the inflammation and everything that's going on. But we haven't necessarily dove into specific foods. And that's what we want to do today. We want to talk about specific foods that can support a thriving body and thriving health. So I do want to throw out that every single body is different. So I may say a food that isn't great for you. And this is where we listen to our bodies and we get more specific. And so sometimes you do need to work with somebody to customize something specific to you. This is a lot of times why people say, oh, I've tried the endo diet, or I've tried paleo, or I've tried vegan, and it didn't work, so I just eat whatever the heck I want. Well, the fact of the matter is there's as many correct diets as there are bodies on the planet. And so this is a big, this is like a foundation of my work. Since we're all unique, there are going to be healthy foods that may not serve your body. For example, flaxseed and chia seeds are both fantastic foods, but there are people who can't have flaxseed and there are people who don't do well with chia seeds. And that's just based on their specific bodies. So even though both of those foods, those seeds are fantastic and can support a body, with endo, it's not right for everyone. I've had a client not be able to do flaxseed and focused on chia seeds instead. So be mindful that your body is unique, and every time you explore foods or explore nutrition as a way of serving your body, keep in mind that that's a trial and error process. Nobody can hand you a diet and say, do this, this is going to work for you. Whether it's about losing weight, gaining weight, reducing symptoms, whatever the goal is, if somebody's just giving you that, it's not exactly responsible, because you may get thinner or larger or whatever the goal is, and you may still be causing harm to your body and feeling kind of funky and not really understanding why, or not seeing the results that you want and giving up on yourself just because it wasn't right for you. So I'd just like to share that before I dive in, and then Kristen's going to be sharing with us some fantastic results she's been experiencing, because she's been actually making some pretty simple like supplement and nutrition changes to help herself kind of bridge that gap and feel better and improve her energy. So I'm going to be asking you about that some, Kristen. So let's just dive in. And I think one of the first things I'd love to share is that quote of "Let food be thy medicine." There are so many things. So every time we make a food decision, it's almost like you can think of it as, am I healing my body or am I poisoning my body? And this is where we sometimes get stuck, because we think that it's like food is good or food is bad. And so we say, oh, I was good today or I was bad or whatever. And the fact of the matter is we just need to shift that and consider, does this food give me energy? Does this food help me feel good in my body? Is this food giving me what I need to have the life that I want? Because, like, what is the point of eating food in the first place? To give us sustained energy, to be able to have a functioning body so we can experience this life. But a lot of times we feel groggy, we feel tired, we're sluggish, we're bloated, we're having a flare-up, we're inflamed, endobelly, I mean, you name it. We're in intense pain, and a lot of times we wait until we're in intense pain to do something about it. So then we're generally looking in the medicine cabinet and not in the fridge or pantry. And by the way, there's no right or wrong, but it's how can we combine all the different types of medicine to make ourselves feel better and have a better quality of life.
And it's even making a brain change, I found, because previously I've talked about like food addiction, and I go towards food for comfort. And I've really had to make the change in my brain where food is not for fun. Food is for fuel. And it's really been like a process to, like, you know, really understand that.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised with how much of a change that I've felt in just making small changes, because I was so stuck in the mindset. I was like, I have endo, I feel crappy anyways, I'm going to eat crap. And it's dumb. I was dumb. Just changing into eating mostly vegetables and meats, I've noticed the increase in my energy, decreased or more manageable pain, and just an overall more comfortability in my body, not feeling so bloated. Like, even looking at myself in the camera now, I can see that I've already lost some weight around my face. And like, it hasn't even been that long. I've only been making these changes, implementing supplements and good foods, and taking away bad foods, especially sugar. I'm a sugar addict. Sugar is the most addictive chemical on the planet. More addictive than cocaine, heroin, and most of us are doing it every day. And carbs is another one, because your body is turning carbs into sugar.
Yeah.
So it's just more sugar.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people don't realize, is how what is sugar. Like, a lot of people don't grab a carton of milk and look at it as a carton of sugar, or corn, or vodka, or potato chips. People think, oh, I like salty, not sweet, it's not a sugar thing. The sugar impact of potato chips, that's actually a sugar craving. But we associate the salty versus what it's doing to our insulin levels, to our blood sugar. And so, yeah, it's really fascinating. And you're right, it's our drug of choice. Sugar is the culprit in a lot of chronic conditions and inflammation and the downward spiral, not to mention the impact it has on our mental health. So anxiety and depression and all of that, because what you mentioned about cocaine and heroin light up one pleasure sensor in the brain, whereas sugar lights it up like a pinball machine, like just has it just goes crazy. So people wonder why they can't sit still. They can't handle life without instant gratification and distraction. So they have to be watching TV, playing a video game, scrolling Facebook. Like, being still is not an option these days. And that's not just based on sugar. That's based on so many different things. But I love that you brought that up, because it's so true. And the mindset shifts, they can happen one step at a time. We don't have to change everything overnight, but we can make some changes. Because what I heard you say was you were adding in nutrient-dense foods like meats and vegetables and supplements. And sure, are there things you're focusing on reducing? Absolutely. But when we start adding and adding and adding, we don't necessarily feel deprived and restricted. We're starting to notice how our bodies feel when we feed ourselves well. And I'll say this until I turn blue in the face. I may not have said it here before, but you will hear me say it again if you follow me in any group or any videos that I do. But our food choices, like our nutrition choices, are one of the purest forms of self-love that we can offer ourselves. And so a lot of times we turn to the sugar or to whatever kind of food that we're craving because we're like, I feel crummy and this is what I want. And by the way, your body is actually trying to solve a problem with the craving. So the craving is not like you suck at life and you have a crappy willpower. There's some science happening, and I won't get into that today, but there's some stuff happening behind underneath the surface and behind the scenes that go on with the brain and the body and what's chemically happening underneath the surface. So please keep that in mind. You can be hard on yourself and beat yourself up, or you can choose a different path and to just start making some changes that work for you where you are right now. Not what somebody says fitness and health is supposed to be, but meeting yourself where you are now. And so it's that aspect of self-love. When we really deem ourselves worthy of love and care, we start feeding ourselves that way versus feeding ourselves in a way that causes chronic pain, chronic inflammation, headaches, depression, anxiety. And I mean, the list could go on. It's shortening our lifespan. We're poisoning ourselves slowly. And by the way, I come from a background of sugar addiction, binge eating, and so this isn't a judgment. This is something that I dealt with over and over. It was my way of, it was a way of self-harm and coping. It was a way of coping, but it was also a way of self-harm. It was a way for me to hurt myself over and over and then punish myself and prove to myself how crappy I was.
I never thought of it that way, but I totally agree.
Yeah. We don't see it at that level. But think about it in the way of when we return to toxic relationships or allow people that we love in our lives to treat us poorly, when we don't hold firm boundaries for ourselves and like honor our needs and our desires, when we stifle our voice or stifle what we want, most of the time we turn to food. It's a self-medicating thing. So just like you said, it's a coping thing. Totally true. And on the other end of that, it oftentimes is we recreate cycles of abuse or a toxic relationship with something, either to replace another thing or distract us from another thing or fill a void so that we don't have to look at it. Right? So let's talk about these foods that we can just start adding. And that's what I want you guys to take away. Like, don't walk away from this episode as, oh, I need to stop eating sugar and stop eating. Let's just talk about what can we add? Like, what foods might be healing for you and what foods could you experiment with and add to determine if your energy and your pain and your body is shifting. So one of the things that a lot of women especially are not getting is healthy fats. So that is huge. Fatty cold water fish like salmon, sardines, mackerel, those types of fishes are fantastic and just jam-packed with not just fats, but a ton of other minerals and nutrients that can really, really serve your body. Ideally, these are wild caught versus farm raised. You want the higher quality for your body so that it can actually use the nutrients and maximize them. But also, it doesn't have to just be fish. You can do nuts and seeds. I mentioned earlier flax seeds and chia seeds. You can do nuts, cashews, almonds. Brazil nuts are fantastic for hormones and for women. So macadamia nuts, just nuts and seeds, and of course the superior fruit of them all, avocado. I know sometimes avocado is, I know. You know though, Kristen, I do have to share this because I know you like smoothies. And I know you've done some of the smoothies and shakes that we've talked about before. And one of my clients recently noticed she hates avocados, texture thing, she can't do it. but she noticed that she could sneak in a little bit of avocado into her smoothies and not notice it. So if you're not an avocado fan, but you really want the superfood properties of it, try that. Try sneaking a little bit into your protein shake or smoothie. She started with a tablespoon and a half, and she was like, I didn't notice it. Now, I will tell you, if you do half an avocado or a full avocado, I don't recommend a full avocado ever. If you do half, you may need to get creative and cover that with, like, you might need to go the chocolate route. Like, it's going to need, like, you're going to have to cover up the avocado, or you're going to taste it and it's going to be gross. You're just going to have to chug it. Some people do that. I normally like to like my shake, but we also want to make sure some people, in order to like their shake, they leave it as a license to fill it up with a lot of sugar. So be mindful of that. Be careful of that. So avocado, though, is fantastic. And a lot of times people still have this issue with fats. And just please keep in mind that fat is not the culprit, even when it comes to, I mean, I know we talk about heart disease and things like that. We've had it wrong for about 40 years. We're cleaning that up now in terms of the nutrition industry. So, so you could do some research, but full fat products are actually higher quality than the fat-free and low fat products. You're going to feel satiated for longer, so you're not going to feel like you're starving and deprived. And fats help with skin and hair, and literally fats are what like make your sex hormones. So eat fat. Like, just do it.
A little tip is there are good fats and there are bad fats. So we don't want like trans fats and things like that, where we're looking for like the healthy omega fats and things like that that are found in nature, the fat that's found in nature, rather than the stuff that we produce. And that's the same with, like you were talking about, full fat products. If something says it's non-fat, low sugar, it means it has more chemicals. That's all it means. More chemicals and less good stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So whole foods is key. I'm so glad you brought that up, Kristen. So I love to, and I love to just focus on, yes, you want nutrient dense fats. Like, does this have nutrients in it? Is this nutritious? Which is the seeds, the nuts, some oils, and avocados and fish and eggs, if eggs work for your body. Some people I know it doesn't. So again, this is specific to each body. So while we're sharing some nutrient dense foods and healing foods, just keep in mind that there may be some trial and error. I may say a food that doesn't serve your body, and that's completely okay. So yes, thank you for that. So healthy nutrient dense fats are phenomenal for any thriving body, especially one with endo. So another thing, protein, of course, which some of those fats that we talked about, like the fish and eggs, you'll get some protein. Protein is definitely key. You get protein actually in quite a few of your foods. Nuts have protein. Vegetables have some protein in them. However, some people do better with lean meats. Some people absolutely need to have red meat. And you're going to find a war about that in terms of no matter where you research. So here's the deal. The higher, whatever kind of meat you eat, again, going with the higher quality meats, paying attention to the sourcing, you'll have less response to chemicals because there will be less in them. So what I've found is some people genuinely, like, red meat bogs their system down. They really shouldn't be eating it. They don't feel good when they eat it. Some people, if they don't have red meat, don't feel good. So in that, you just be mindful of the sourcing, because if they're injected with a bunch of antibiotics and hormones, that's going to impact your body. So I normally go for like pasture raised. I want to know that these animals were raised on a pasture, that they got to move around, that they were, humanely treated, and they were not injected with a whole bunch of junk. So that's ideal. if you're eating meat. And of course, though, what I tell people all the time is one step at a time, right? So if you're like, I don't know about red meat, but if you're eating, chicken and turkey and fish, again, just see if you can up level the quality if you're unsure about how it's impacting your body. Because a lot of times, so let me give you an example. I had a client who had an issue with eggs. We'd done a reset cleanse and we did it like kind of eliminated some stuff and added things back in so we could test out and see, does she have food sensitivities? What's going on with her body? And she had a reaction to eggs. And so one of the steps we took was, instead of saying, oh, okay, you can't have eggs ever, we did it again. But when we introduced eggs, we did like the the pasture raised, organic, like vegetarian fed or whatever, just like they didn't have all the extra stuff in it, and she could eat those eggs and they were fine. And after a month or so, she did try to go back to the other eggs. Here's what she's discovered. She can't eat those cheap run-of-the-mill eggs that they have on the shelf at the grocery store. So she pays a little bit more money. She gets higher quality food, and it doesn't harm her body. So that's just an example of the sourcing. I have a very close coach friend of mine who has an issue with gluten, but what she discovered was, and it'll break her out, but it's not actually the gluten as much as it is the pesticides that are used on the crops. That's what her body's reacting to. So she's gluten-free. She eats mainly gluten-free, but it's not as much. So it's so interesting to see how our different bodies respond to different things. So sometimes we might think that we're reacting to something, but it's really the source and what's been injected into it that we're reacting. Because it's just like what you said, Kristen, about the chemicals. We're exposed to so many chemicals. Our body does not recognize all of these chemicals. It can get overwhelmed and inundated by them. And so then what happens is we have toxic overload. We hold on to fatty tissue. We're inflamed. We have a really hard time doing our regular bodily processes and functions. So when in doubt, count chemicals, not calories. So if you want potato chips, have potato chips, but take the bags and turn them around, and the one that has the fewest amount of chemicals, go with that one. That's if that's the only first step you do, that's progress. So moving on, we talked about proteins and about sourcing really well. Obviously, vegetables has to be on the list. I mean, we can't talk about healing foods and not talk about vegetables. So ensuring that you have high quality vegetables in your diet. And by the way, it doesn't matter if you're like, if every time you buy fresh veggies they end up in the trash can, and you never open the canned ones, try frozen. A lot of times frozen is ideal because when it's picked and if it's flash frozen, you can get tons of great nutrients. But one of the things I say is progress is progress. So I don't care which vegetables they are, just start getting more vegetables in your diet. And then you can start worrying about, how many servings or which ones. But for our purposes, obviously dark leafy greens are crucial. Things like arugula, kale, spinach. But most of us do not get enough vegetables, and the issue with that is we're not getting enough of the micro minerals and vitamins that are in them. So whatever that is, if you love eggs for breakfast, can you stir in some spinach? If lunch is normally a sandwich, can you take some cucumber, carrots, and celery and dip them in hummus or guacamole? So it's like finding, what do you currently eat and how can you just up level it a little bit? And so greens are great. Can you get greens in your smoothies and shakes? Can you get them on your plate? Can you make some soups and stews and freeze them if you need to? But dark leafy greens, vegetables. We don't get enough of them.
Some tips for vegetables.
Yeah.
Just because, I don't have the most money, if you can, buy local, like at the farmer's market or local stores, like little mom and pop shop kind of things. Buy when it's on sale. Some vegetables that are fresh can be frozen, or you could even get into canning or jarring yourself. Um, I mean, just I like to buy local because not only is it usually organic, it's usually you're helping not only yourself but your community. You're giving back to them, and I find that they put more care into growing their vegetables because that is their job. They're not a mass marketed company that has millions of dollars and you're buying from them anyways. Um, buy what's on sale. Like, that's what I like to do. Like, if celery is a really great price, I'm going to eat some more celery that week. If carrots are a great price, I'm going to cook up more carrots for dinner and have some carrots as my snack. Things like that, that you can just incorporate slowly, and it doesn't really affect you that much. And you don't always have to get fresh. Like Kenny was saying, frozen is a great option after fresh, and then after frozen I would put canned, because the more preservatives are in cans to keep it fresh than frozen. But always best is fresh from the produce section.
Yeah, and you know, and sometimes it depends on where it comes from, because if you're going to the farmers market, if you're shopping locally, 100% hands down, not only is it fresh and cared for and organic, and that you're supporting your local community, but on top of that, it's also normally seasonal. And there's a lot of science around when our bodies need certain nutrients that match the life cycle of the area that we live in. So when I say seasonal, I'm talking about whatever type of season changes you have where you live. So if you're shopping locally and going to a farmer's market and their farm is local and they're, um, then you're actually eating with the season, which is very good for the body because it goes with those cycles of the things that you need. Because we need more of some things when the sun's out more and when the sun's away, when the weather shifts and is cooler, when, as we have these changes, our body needs change. And so it's really common. I share that with my clients because sometimes my clients start to notice that in season changes, they start craving different types of foods. And that's completely natural. Yeah. That means you're understanding like intuitive eating, like you're starting to follow your body's natural crave cycles, and your body starts craving based on nutrients that you need versus taste that you want. The issue is most of the time is we're very disconnected from our bodies. That's become a natural way of being, and so a lot of times we don't have any idea what the body needs. We're craving based on emotions and what we were talking about earlier, feelings and needs that need to be met versus our nutritional needs. And we can reset the body so that it starts to crave what you need, and suddenly you find yourself eating more of some sort of nutrient that your body just needed more of. So that's a fantastic point about the farmer's market. I will say, if you're the person who buys vegetables with the best intentions and they end up in the trash can and now you're mad because you don't have the money to waste and you just wasted it, please get frozen. Get frozen, because when we're shopping at the grocery store, sometimes what we have access to there, we don't have the whole story of that. And so when they test it, sometimes frozen turns out to be a step ahead just because of when it was picked and how it was, if it was flash frozen and all of that. But if you can go farmer's market fresh, do it. But also fit in whatever you need, whatever works for you and for your family. So vegetables is fantastic and something that we could always be improving on. And they're very gut healing. However, I will say that if you experience digestive distress, IBS, or anything like that, it's very common to have some discomfort when you start increasing. Because another thing I want to talk about was fiber, which you'll get if you're having vegetables and fruits. So if you're getting tons of veggies and fruits and your fiber's increasing and you're not used to eating that way, sometimes if you already especially have digestive upset, that could potentially make it worse. And it's not that the foods are necessarily bad for you, it's that the gut is like, what are you doing? Like, what is happening here? So
It's so true. Like I've actually felt a little bit of detox. Like I've had pimples and I've been TMI pooping a lot
yeah,
because my body is adjusting to real food again because I've been eating junk for the past like 5 years.
yeah.
So my body's like, oh my God, real food.
Yeah. And it does. And sometimes, especially with like fiber, it like gets confused. And if there's an imbalance in your gut flora and in your microbiome here, when there's an imbalance, it can kind of get angry. So if that's the case, if you start eating vegetables and you notice yourself uncomfortable, cooking them like just a little bit, like steaming veggies for like 4 minutes, it helps break down some of that so that you're not having such a reaction. It's more easy to digest. I'll just put it that way. So it's digestible, or even more so. So if it's like you love the taste of raw vegetable, like I'm more of a raw vegetable person. I can eat raw vegetables all day long, but sometimes I need to make sure that I'm doing cooked. Otherwise, I can kind of upset my system, especially if I'm in a place of transitioning back. If I got off track and I was eating a bunch of junk for a couple weeks, it shocks the system. So if you're upping your vegetable intake, don't be afraid to like saute them just a little bit, steam them just a little bit, just to make that easier for digestion. And some other healing foods are things like bone broth is fantastic for gut healing. Tons of minerals and nutrients. You can make it at home yourself. There are some that you can purchase. You just, again, want to pay attention to the quality. It's really not hard to make. And once you get into the hang of making it, you can, it's easy. You can freeze it if you need to. Most of my clients prefer their bone broth when they make it themselves. But if you're sick, if you're not feeling well, and you just want to buy a pre-made version, that can also be a fantastic option. Just, again, look at the amount of chemicals, look at the amount of, look at the ingredients, and try to get a great source. So, and one thing, I do want to wrap up pretty soon. I know we're maybe going a bit over today, but one thing I do want to mention is the need for progesterone. Endo is an estrogen dominant condition, and obviously you will hear people say, well, it doesn't matter how much estrogen is in your diet, it makes its own estrogen. Of course, yes, endo does make its own estrogen. That is true. However, the more estrogen in our system, the more reactive it can be. Is that clear? Does that make sense the way I'm saying that? So
Yeah, like basically you have your own estrogen and endo makes its own estrogen, but when you're eating certain foods and even using certain products, you're adding hormone disrupting chemicals to your body. So really you're making even more estrogen than you're already making.
yeah. So a lot of times people sort of hear this and they freak out about phytoestrogens. And where I would love to challenge you is, instead of, I'm not saying don't pay attention to estrogen if you know you have an estrogen dominant body, if you know, but if we were to focus on progesterone for a little while and eat more foods that help the body produce more of its own progesterone and set the body up so that it can, because most of us are low. That's one of the things that wreaks havoc in the female body. That is, I don't want to say it's the blame, but it has women with endo, with PCOS, with all sorts of hormonal imbalances or issues, there's a chronic level or a chronic low levels of progesterone, and we want to boost them. So we want to make sure that we're eating foods that allow our body to boost progesterone. And so some of these things, which this is so perfect, Kristen, because you right before we got on, I was asking you about the supplements you were taking, and I'm going to be speaking to a few of those supplements. So after, I'd love to hear you share a little bit about how you've been feeling since you've been taking these supplements. But so vitamin C is one that can help boost progesterone, and you can get vitamin C, of course, from like lemons and oranges, but there's also kiwi and grapefruit and broccoli. A lot of times people don't think about broccoli when they think of vitamin C. But sweet potato and strawberries and papaya and pumpkin. By the way, pumpkin and pumpkin seeds strategically placed can be fantastic. And then mustard greens. We were talking about greens earlier, tomatoes, Brussels sprouts, and lemons. Those are all fantastic vitamin C foods. And zinc is another one. Zinc is a fantastic, it's a lot of people take, the supplement, and they know that it helps immunity. Like every time I've ever had a cold, zinc is like my go-to as soon as I feel it coming on. So some oysters, I know oysters is kind of, some people are like, not ever eating them, but oysters, shrimp, beef, lamb, liver. I'm not a big liver fan. I know some people are. I know some of these foods, it's like, here's what I do though. Here's what I tell people, and this is what I do for myself. Even when I don't think I like a food, I allow myself to try different versions of it. So I'm not going to sit and eat an oyster on a cracker with some Tabasco over it. I was 10 years old when that was given to me, and I was like traumatized by what I thought was like mucus going down my gullet. My dad gave it to me. That was my first introduction to oysters. Yeah. So that's not my cup of tea. But then I tried a fried oyster once, and I don't normally eat fried food, and that's not something I generally I always suggest for health conscious individuals. But if you try a fried oyster and you like that, then what if we tried baking them with some, like there's all kinds of different ways. But then there's easy stuff like red meat and pumpkin again, and cashews. I love cashews. And the great thing about cashews is they're actually, if you're dairy free, cashews are the base of a lot of dairy-free cheeses and sauces. I have made a creamy fettuccine Alfredo with cashew sauce as the base. And it's actually pretty fantastic what you can do with cashews. And so they have zinc and they have fats, and they're delicious. So those are some great options. And magnesium. I've used magnesium to help with headaches and cramps and sleeping better, all of the above. And this is why I oftentimes recommend Epsom salt baths as well, so that you can kind of soak in the magnesium. But cashews, again, have magnesium. Dark chocolate, I got to be careful how I say chocolate. But pure cacao or dark chocolate does have magnesium in it. Dark leafy greens like the kale and Swiss chard. Pumpkin seeds again. Do you see where I'm going with like the pumpkin seeds and the cashews? And this is why I said earlier, seeds and nuts, people, these can be so beneficial to the body. Black beans, lentils, mackerel, and whole grain brown rice does have magnesium in it. And so, like, as you can see, there's tons. There's so many different foods. There's, there's vitamin E, there's B6 vitamins. I wrote down a couple notes here for some other russet potatoes, salmon, tuna, bananas, spinach, walnuts. These are all vitamin B6. We have sweet potatoes again. And And then some of those, we talked about some of the vitamin E foods earlier, the almonds, and I didn't mention hazelnuts. Hazelnuts is great as well. Sunflower seeds, like I love putting sunflower. Have you ever tried that, Kristen? Have you tried sunflower seeds on stuff like in salads or with tuna or anything like that?
Yeah, I love nuts and seeds. I put seeds on salads or in stir fry.
Good.
I've been using chia seeds in my smoothie. I
Yeah.
only use a little bit because I do find that they taste strong to me for some reason.
Oh,
Even
really?
in the smoothie, I can taste them. So I only use like a couple pinches, which some is better than none. So
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And with chia seeds, if you're tasting them a lot, you might try them when they become gelatinous. So if you've ever tried overnight oats or chia pudding, it actually shifts it into a different texture and taste, and that might be something to try.
I'll definitely have to try that.
Yeah. So let's see, what else? So I mentioned, yeah, a lot, and that's the great thing about some of these foods is the definition of nutrient dense foods. Like you keep hearing me say pumpkin and pumpkin seeds on so many of these, or like cashews, is that's the great thing. A nutrient dense food generally has tons of goodies in it, never just one. So sometimes when you start adding these things to your nutrition, you don't even realize how much good you're adding, which is exactly why what you were saying earlier, Kristen, which was, I can't believe how much better I'm already feeling. It's only been a few weeks that you've been making these changes. And so one thing I do want to mention, because we talked about fats, I didn't mention coconut oil, and coconut oil is a great fat, as well as coconut butter, turkey, red meat, eggs, things like that, olives, olive oil. Some of these things help improve like the good cholesterol as well. And this also helps with allowing your body to boost progesterone production. So, and I didn't dive deeply into fiber. There's so many things. There's so much, but I did mention fiber, and I mentioned how many of the foods we talked about, the vegetables and the fruits and the dark leafy greens, they're going to have your fiber in it. And that's really, really crucial as well for helping this gut bacteria, helping cleanse everything, helping digest properly, releasing excess fatty tissue and toxins in the body. There's just so much there. So we've given you just tons of tips in terms of different foods you can eat, and go ahead and just, you can like Google like progesterone boosting foods to start there, or hormone balancing foods. Everything we talked about was in the effort of improving the way that your hormones are functioning. We want your hormones functioning really well, and most of the time there's something kind of out of whack that exacerbates the issue. So I'm not saying that perfect hormones makes everything go away. I'm simply saying we can improve what's happening with our bodies. So Kristen, like I was talking about, like the magnesium and the B6, and those are some things that you mentioned. So can you share with us a little bit about how eating more of the vegetables, eating more of the meat, taking some of these supplements that you've been taking, how you're feeling right now as as compared to just a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, so I've been taking a lot of supplements. I feel like that's my breakfast right now. Like I'm having a hard time choking them down, but you get used to things. Like it's hard to implement new things in your life. I mean, we are creatures of habit. So changing things is not easy. Just doing little micro steps, I call it micro steps.
Yes, yes.
So maybe it's not a full step, maybe it's like a half a step. But just like implementing better things and slowly removing the things that aren't good for you, I've noticed a huge change. Especially with something that's my favorite, and it kills me a little bit that it hurts me so much, is chocolate. Oh my God, I love chocolate, but I had gone off of it and I hadn't had any chocolate for like 2 weeks and then I ate a granola bar that had chocolate like coated on the bottom. Oh my God. I got cramps and was bloated like right away. And it's funny because something that I ate probably like every day and loved was really hurting me in the end.
Yeah.
And I probably realized that before and just kind of was like ignorant to it and was like, it's not hurting me because I'm just going to take it because I like it and just eat the chocolate and then pay for it later. I really was living in that mentality of like, I'm a sucker for punishment, so whatevs. Which I've really had like mind shifting and shifting perspectives of just how I'm treating myself and my body. Like I've really been looking into self-love, and I totally agree with you with what you eat is a form of self-love because you are wanting to be your best self and feel your best. And when you're your best, you can contribute to society and your family way better. And just adding supplements and eating mostly raw veggies during the day, and I'll have like dinner with my boyfriend sometimes and we'll have the same thing, and sometimes we'll have different things. And that's one of the things that we're getting used to as well, is that we always used to eat the same things, and we are now accepting that what he eats is not necessarily good for me because it's has things that I shouldn't be eating and things that are hurting me, and what I'm eating is not necessarily good for him because he's not going to eat raw vegetables and be a bunny like I am. Like I love raw vegetables, just eating them as is, cut up in a bowl as my snack, and like that's what I've gotten used to now. And you don't have to cut out everything. Like I found a bag of chips that is like it's not fried, it's actually like hot air puffed, the chips. So you can eat like, I think at the back says 6 cups of them, and it's like 40 calories, no cholesterol, because I just did some blood work and I have high cholesterol, so I've been working on lowering cholesterol and like incorporating good cholesterol like eggs here and there. So like you're saying, eggs aren't necessarily good for everyone. So sometimes when I make my boyfriend eggs, I'm not going to eat them, kind of thing. Mostly I've some tips that I've learned, like 3 great tips that I've learned is if it had a life, generally it's good for you. Like nuts, seeds, animals, fruits and veggies all were like alive before you picked them. Nutrition is really like 70-80%, or health is like 70-80% nutrition. So what you're eating and what you're putting in your body is pretty much all of the work. You can exercise, like you only need 20%, 30% exercise and things like that. Really, the core of your health is what you eat. And I really am taking you are what you eat as like,
you're taking it serious.
yeah, like super serious. Like
so I'm curious about your current energy levels.
I have so much more energy. Like I haven't had this much energy since like, I have no idea, like a long time. I feel like years at least. Like I'm getting my dog out for a walk almost every day, which I didn't, sometimes twice a day, which I will admit I would just sometimes take him out and then bring him back in, which isn't fun for me and it's not fun for him either. Like, so it's great for both of us to get moving. I've joined a fitness class. I started doing Muay Thai kickboxing, which is so hard, but it's rewarding that you're actually doing something with other people. And I just joined a women's class because right now I'm not really comfortable being like co-ed, and I kind of just want to be with women so I can get more comfortable with getting in tune with my body and my new body and moving again, because really I wasn't doing like any activity. Maybe I would walk somewhere if I had to.
Yeah.
No, if I want to.
What have you noticed related to pain in the last few weeks? Have you noticed a shift there yet?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've gotten, like, since I started cannabis, I'd gotten off narcotics, and I was still taking like over the counter things like ibuprofen and Tylenol generally every day. And I haven't been taking the ibuprofen or Tylenol, just um, the supplements. And it's crazy how much magnesium I found has helped with
Yes.
like muscle pain,
Mhm.
joint stiffness.
Mhm.
Um, I definitely found that I'm sleeping better. I'm waking up less.
Mhm.
It's crazy how just little changes can make such a big impact.
Yeah, it's also exciting and amazing though. Like it's
Yeah,
it's so exciting because what that means is if we're willing to consistently try, because there's going to be things we try that we don't really notice much of a difference with, right? And it doesn't mean it's doing us harm if we don't notice a difference, and it also doesn't mean it's not working. Sometimes we need to consistently get ourselves healthier and healthier and healthier. But it does, it helps so much, and I just appreciate, well, I'm just so excited for you and proud of you for doing all of that for yourself, and I'm just thrilled that you're noticing the benefits already, because that's a testament to how quickly we can start to shift what's happening internally. And so I love, that you shared that. And I actually want to play devil's advocate just a little bit here with one thing that you said, which, by the way, guys, we are going to close soon, in this one soon. But Kristen and I talked about me taking her through a few sessions right here in K&K Real Talk, so that you could experience what she's experiencing as she goes through it, and get an idea of what, learn from it and get that experience. But as a coach and as somebody who's has done so much studying related to nutrition, where your cholesterol is, I'd love for you to not yet, or obviously, of course, I have to say things like, talk to your doctor and all of that. But what we're finding is sugar is generally the culprit when it is related to fatty liver disease, which is as the cholesterol builds and builds and builds, it's because we're not processing, the fat, and then it gets to a point where we have fatty liver disease and diabetes and things like that. What's coming about though is a lot of people of average or normal weight are being diagnosed with fatty liver disease and diabetes, but you would never know to look at them, and they wouldn't know because they thought, well, I'm thin, so I have to be healthy, right? That is not true. That is not the case. And more very young children are being diagnosed with these things as well. And what we're finding is sugar is actually the culprit. So, totally up to you if you're like follow and trust your gut. But normally when eggs isn't right for somebody, it's an allergic reaction. It has nothing to do with the cholesterol. And the fats in eggs can help actually process, like it's, unless your body it's very rare that people actually have an egg allergy, but unless you have an egg allergy, normally eggs are not actually bad for anyone if you're eating high quality eggs. So I just want to let you know that the work that you're doing around sugar may be everything that you need. And eggs and red meat and stuff like that, when it's related to when it's related to the other side of things, I'd be interested to see if you don't shift that much around that and wait to see what all these other changes are doing the next time you have this test. It could be fantastic. And also, pure chocolate is a superfood. So if you want chocolate, now here's the caveat. I suggest 85% or higher for dark chocolate. Obviously, that's more bitter, so not everybody loves it. I love it. I'm obsessed with it. I like to pair, I'll do a couple dark chocolate squares, 85% or more, with some fresh organic raspberries, and the tartness plus the dark chocolate, it handles my cravings. Like the tart and just everything together is fantastic. And for your shakes and smoothies, if you want to buy some pure cacao or cacao nibs, You can just put some of that in your shake. You get the chocolate, but you're getting the magnesium and the superfood properties without all of the added. It's the stuff they put in the chocolate for milk chocolate and white chocolate that makes it so dangerous.
Hmm.
And a lot of people don't realize that they actually don't have to give up chocolate totally.
That's good to know.
So yeah, I just wanted to give you that little, because you're so open about sharing all these things. I wanted to give you some insights to just try, and they may work, and you know, they may not, but you can try it and see if you like it.
That's a good idea. I just wanted to throw my last tip out there, which I've learned from Rose Namajunas, who's a UFC fighter, since like I'm really into like getting into MMA for like exercise, and I'll be going to an event here in Canada in December, so I'm super excited about that. But Rose Namajunas is a fighter, and I like that she uses that the easier it is to make, the easier it is to break. So the less ingredients and the more whole foods that you are eating, it's way easier for your body to break down. So if I'm eating a lot of crap and fake shit, my body is going to take forever to break that down. Whereas if I'm eating good, real foods, my body can actually use that and take things that it needs from that and turn that into energy rather than just turning it into fat, which is, I mean, what I've been doing.
It's so true. And that also speaks to when your body can digest and assimilate the nutrients easier and faster, it slows down how quickly it does it, which speeds up your metabolism. And it also gives you more energy because less of your energy is bogged down trying to digest food that it doesn't even recognize and figure out what the heck to do with it, and then just stores it as fat because it just gets bogged down and you're tired on top of that. So that's part of that energy shift. So one of the ways that we can define, like if you were to say, well, what is a whole food? Like, how do I know what a whole food is? Normally it's something that doesn't come from a package and just, like Kristen said earlier, had a life cycle. But for our purposes, you can consider a whole food to be something with 5 ingredients or less. So if you look at anything that is in a package, if it has 5 ingredients or less, for today's purposes and for right now, go ahead and categorize that as a whole food, because that will be easier than, you know, like a lot of people say, well, only shop the grocery store like around, don't go down any of the aisles, just go around. And that's conducive for some people, but we know that some of you are like, yeah, but you guys don't understand. It's a budgetary thing. I'm busy. I have 75 children and I work full time and I run 2 side businesses. I'm a, you know, side hustling mama. Like, we feel you, we get you wherever you are. So this is about, just like Kristen was sharing, making small, simple changes. So what's 1 or 2 small? Can you just up your water and start reducing?
Just that alone is huge. Upping your water, like I've been drinking a lot more water, and that's also contributed to more energy.
Yes.
So if anything, just add more water. Yeah. Replace a pop at one of your meals every day with water. That will be your start. That's your little start. And with the 5 ingredients, if you want to be a little more strict on that, make sure that those 5 ingredients are all pronounceable and none of them are chemicals. Mm-hmm. So
you know what they are.
Anything you can't pronounce is a chemical, like crazy long letters just strung together. That's not good for you.
Yeah, if you don't recognize it, if you don't know what it is, that's not a whole food. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I love this. Today was so, like, there was so much, and we know we threw a lot at you. So take one thing away. And just like Kristen was saying with the water, one of my little tricks is I call it watering your body. So you water first, like water before coffee. That was hard for me because I love my coffee in the morning. But if I start with water, I'm going to drink more water all day long. If I wait until 2 o'clock in the afternoon to start drinking water, I'll drink some, but it's not going to set me up.
Yeah, it's just your kickstart too. If you drink just like a whole glass of water, as soon as you get up, you're waking up your organs, you're getting your blood flowing. I know we're throwing a lot at you, and there's so much more that we could throw at you.
Yeah.
So if you have like a question in particular, or there's a topic that you want us to cover, as always, send either of us a message or drop us a comment on the YouTube or on the Facebook, and we will get back to you and hopefully do an episode about it. I mean, there's so much we can talk about endo nutrition and just being women in general.
Yes, we love hearing your comments, your concerns, and we love hearing the topics. A lot of times the topics we bring forward, they're topics from you, like from what you've written to us or from the questions and comments we see coming up in the group. So again, you can find Kristen at Endometriosis and Me. Her website's just endometriosisandme.com, but of course there's the Facebook pages and the groups. So you just follow everything Endometriosis and Me. And then to stay connected with me, you can, of course, find me at Kenny Rochelle Coaching. But join us over at Endometriosis Nourish, Flourish, Thrive. It's a closed Facebook group that is linked to Endometriosis and Me, the Facebook group. And so we work together. So that's where you can find me, Endometriosis Nourish, Flourish, Thrive. So we love you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. And again, we're here for you and we love you and we will see you next week. Bye, guys.